at 6:31.
Peter?
Councilors present are Vice President Parika and President Cooper. I have two motions. From the docket of November 20th, 2018, I entertain a motion to approve the application for a Class 2 2019 auto renewal from R&D Auto Sales at 116 Dickens Street with 5 customer spaces and 8 display spaces.
Second.
So, I just wanted to bring this out of committee for the whole council to weigh in. I do have information that I passed out to everybody and to my committee members on everything that I have done. And I wanted to read, I also have an opinion here from the city solicitor that I'd like to read into the record. If you all just bear with me, please, I'll try to be fast. Okay, so I'm writing in response to the request for a legal opinion regarding whether the municipal council, acting as license authority, can refuse to grant R&D Auto a Class 2 license for 2019. Facts. Excuse me. I understand the facts to be as follows. Daniel Martinez, DBA R&D Auto Sales, has applied for a Class 2 license for 2019 application. The application is for the renewal of a Class 2 license and is in accordance with provisions of MGL Section 140, subsection 59. The application also states that Mr. Martinez also runs a repair business at the property. The signature of Mr. Martinez on the 2019 application appears to be different from the signature on the 2018 application. Fact 2. Mr. Martinez is not the owner of 116 Dickens Street where he operates the business. No lease has been submitted with the application. He has submitted proof of insurance for the business at the Dickens Street location. 3. On December 12, 2018, Laura Dolan inspected the property with, in here it says Police Chief Kyle Hagney, but that's not correct. I was with an officer plant during that day and was informed Mr. Martinez was incarcerated and not currently running the business. Just to clarify that, also, I was informed on the phone with the person that's running the business for Mr. Martinez that he was incarcerated. That wasn't when I was physically on the premises. So I just wanted to clarify that for the record. 4, Mr. Martinez is currently incarcerated as a result of a complaint on 9/22/18. The police were called to the property on the date by a neighbor and witness who stated Mr. Martinez had beaten his girlfriend. An ambulance was also called. Mr. Martinez is physically unable to run the business at this time. There is a history of criminal activity at this location. 5, Mr. Martinez has given durable power of attorney to Richard Lewis, authorizing him to essentially run R&D Auto Sales. Pursuant to paragraph 4 of the DPA, Mr. Martinez can revoke this DPA at any time simply by filing a written revocation in the Records Office in Providence, Rhode Island. Issue. Specifically, you asked for a legal opinion on the council's ability to deny the Class 2 license application for 2019 since Mr. Martinez is in prison and not physically able to run the business. Discussion. Pursuant to MGL Section 140, subsection 59, the local licensing authority may grant a Class 2 license to an applicant which shall expire on January 1st following the date of issue unless sooner revoked. The state mandates that no such license shall be granted unless the licensing board is satisfied from an investigation of the facts stated in the application and any other information which they may require of the applicant, that he is a proper person to engage in the business specified in the classifications for which he has applied, that said business is or will be his principal business, and that he has an available place of business suitable for the purpose. All 3 requirements must be met to the satisfaction of the licensing authority. C. Justin Janis, LLC versus Garabidian, 2007, 2935842, Mass. Super, August 17th, 2007. Additionally, an applicant must receive a bond, collateral, or other equivalent proof of financial responsibility satisfactory to the municipal licensing authority in the amount of $25,000 executed by an authorized surety company. Mass General Law, Section 140, subsection 59. The statute does not require the licensing authority to hold a public hearing to issue a Class II license. A hearing is required to issue a Class III license and to revoke a license. As previously explained in the opinion of City Solicitor Robert Mangiarotti dated October 9, 2012, the licensing authority is given broad discretion as to issuing or withholding a license. Bennett versus BD of Alderman of Chelsea, 361 Mass, 802-807, 1972. If the licensing authority denies the application, it must state the reasons for its denial. Ludvigsen versus Town of Denham, 48 Mass, App 682, 686, 2006. A decision of a local licensing authority will be upheld unless the decision is based upon an error of law or is unsupported by substantial evidence. 48 Mass, App at 682. Court defers to the discretion of the local licensing authority and will not overturn a local decision based on valid legal principles unless it is arbitrary or capricious. Roslindale Motor Sales, Inc. versus Police Commissioner of Boston, 405 Mass, 79, 1989. Conclusion: the fact that Mr. Martinez is not physically able to run the business while he is incarcerated for assaulting his girlfriend on the premises may be sufficient for the council to deny his application. Additionally, if the council determines the application was not in act signed by Mr. Martinez, it could deny the application. The council could reasonably conclude such criminal conduct in the failure to accurately, truthfully sign the application reflect a lack of good character and render Mr. Martinez not a proper person to hold a license. Additionally, without proof of lease or other indication that Mr. Martinez is authorized to run his business at 116 Dickens Street, the council could conclude he does not have a suitable place for business available to him. If based upon the facts above, the council determines that the applicant is either not a proper person, the business is not the applicant's principal business, or that the applicant does not have available a place of business suitable for such purposes within the meaning of MGL, Section 140, subsection 59, the council may deny the application for a Class II license. Additionally, if the application is not complete, it can deny the application. It is possible for Richard Lewis to file a new application in his own name with a power of attorney for Mr. Martinez, DBA R&D Auto Sales. The council will then make a determination as to whether Mr. Lewis can meet the 3 prongs required to obtain a Class II license. It is unclear to me whether Mr. Lewis filled out the current 2019 application improperly signing as Mr. Martinez. It is of concern that Mr. Lewis, POA, can be revoked by Mr. Martinez at any time. Each of these factors could lead the council to determine that Mr. Lewis is not a proper person to be granted a Class II license. Sincerely, Cindy Amara, Attleboro City Solicitor. Hi.
So, you can make comments first if you want, and then I'll make them after. I don't know if you had any more.
Well, I also provided everybody with a timeline of the history of this location, and it seems to have changed hands, but all the same people, just relative in some way or another, friend, relative, and it concerns me too of this gentleman having power of attorney, and if he did want to come in and file an application, that it would be the same old, same people, same everything going on. So obviously, everything that's gone on here is concerning to me, that a lot of things have happened at this location. I have received complaints from people that are too afraid to tell me who they are because they're afraid to give their name.
Thank you for all your work on this, and I think that the statement from the solicitor confirmed everything that we had been feeling, and some of us have been saying, Councilor Conti, for a couple of sort of cycles through this particular applicant, and I will support it coming out of the committee, but I will not support this application when it comes before the full council. And I think at the suggestion of the city solicitor, really it's the next to the last paragraph is the response to the applicant as to why the application was denied. That concludes my comments.
Thank Vice President Parika?
I wholeheartedly agree with everything that President Cooper just stated. You and I have been down there together, and when you were taking over originally, as long as I've been a municipal councilor, this particular location has, regardless of who owned it, the conditions down there, the activity that takes place down there, the parking on the street, all of those things have compiled into where we are today. In addition to that, I'm sure that Councilor Conti will make has the potential of making some discussion with regards to proper person. I think that this opinion from the city solicitor is extraordinarily helpful to us in making a challenging decision. We have struggles with licenses on a regular basis, and none of us ever want to have to be the one to pull the plug. But this particular circumstance, I feel comfortable not approving the application, but it also gives a clearer path to the potential for somebody else to take it over. But they don't get a free ride on it. They need to do the work themselves to be able to maintain that business. So
Right.
I also will vote in the affirmative in committee to bring it in front of the full council, but I will not support it in front of the full council.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I neglected to mention that as well. I did want to bring it to the full council so everybody has a chance to speak and to provide their vote. So right now, I'm just going to take comments from my committee so that way we can talk about it full council in order to just move this along, if everybody's okay with that. And, all right, so second from Vice President Parika. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. I have one more from the docket of September 18th, 2018. I'm just full of good news tonight. I entertain a motion to revoke the 2019 Class 2 auto license of Looney Tune Auto Sales, 826 Washington Street, Attleboro, Mass.
Second.
And this gentleman we all saw at the public hearing. We listened to him, and I don't really have any comments.
Oh, President Cooper was first.
I just have one comment that I am in support of the revocation. I would have been in support of revoking despite the testimony from the owner that he doesn't have a place to do business, which in the previous reading is one of the requirements of issuing the license. So
Right.
we technically couldn't issue him one anyway.
Right.
But I think since we've gone through this process this far and there's still 2 weeks left of the year, we should revoke the license so that he can't continue to do business there as he starts to move out of that location. So I will support it here, and I will support it before the full council.
I agree.
Thank you for all your work with both of these.
Thank you.
So I have a procedural question. So we'll vote this out of committee tonight and vote it out, I would assume, in front of the full council. Is there a waiting period on that at all? Or is it just till the mayor signs the certificate of vote? It would be effective then?
Go ahead.
So I believe it's when the mayor signs the vote, the clerk would get that notice and notify them and their bond agency.
Would we be able to add effective upon passage to
We
that?
should,
So I
probably.
think that when it comes up in front of the full council, I will make an amendment just to add that sentence that says effective upon passage, so that this
Just in
shuts it
case.
down right now.
Okay. Good. Any other comments?
And that obviously gives you a clue as to the way I'm going to vote.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. That's
Thank
all
you.
the, did you?
No, just
Oh,
thank you.
I'm sorry. All those, did I just say all those in favor? I'm sorry. Motion passes. I'd like to adjourn License Committee at 6:45.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Kate's back.
We are adjourned.
So I call the Zoning and Land Use Committee to order at 6:45. Tonight, we just have a couple items regarding the special permit application for Briarleaf. And we discussed it last week that everything was in order and ready to go, but we needed to get the motions ready and split it into the 6 different motions. I sent out an email to everybody on Thursday or Friday of last week with all the details and particulars. So this is just to read these in and vote them out of committee, and then we'll have a larger discussion with the full council. So from the docket of May 15th, 2018, the following votes pertain to Briarleaf's request for a special permit to operate a registered marijuana dispensary at 527 Pleasant Street. I entertain a motion that the municipal council find that standard 1 of section 17-9.4A, standards for granting special permit, is satisfied as the requested use is allowed under section 17-3.4, table of use regulations, community facilities 11C, as a special permitted use in the district for which the application is made.
Second.
Pretty straightforward. It's the first item on here. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed. I entertain a motion that the municipal council find that standard 2 of section 17-9.4A, standards for granting permit, is satisfied as the requested use will not cause undue traffic congestion or impair pedestrian safety.
Second.
And this was covered in the report from the planning department. Any questions, comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. I entertain a motion that the municipal council find that standard 3 of section 17-9.4A, standard for granting permit, is satisfied as the requested use will not overload any municipal system to such an extent that the requested use or any developed use in the immediate area or in any other area of the city will be unduly subject to hazard affecting health, safety, or the general welfare.
Second.
And we have the report from the planning department. And we have, I'll talk more about it in front of the full committee, but we have the 29 conditions for the special permit that were also sent around. And one of those conditions is that before getting receiving their building permit, that they need to have the sewage plan and the water disposal plan reviewed again by wastewater treatment. So, any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. I entertain a motion that the municipal council find that standard 4 of section 17-9.4A, standards for granting permit, is satisfied as the requested use will not have a severe undesirable effect on the neighborhood, public, and environment that would be lessened significantly by denying or modifying the requested permit.
Second.
So with Briarleaf, you'll remember that there was a lot of discussion about whether it would have a negative impact to the other businesses there in that business park. When I sent out the information to everybody last week, included the memo from Attorney Feeney rescinding their objection to this. They had worked out the details with the insurance and all of that. So in my mind, this is all set. Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. I entertain a motion that the municipal council find that the standard 5 of section 17-9.4A, standards for granting permit, is satisfied as application pursuant to the provisions of section 17-10 special regulations has been filed.
Second.
And again, we have the report from the planning department. Everything appears to be in order. So, any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. I entertain a motion that the municipal council find that standard 6 of section 17-9.4A, standards for granting permit, is not applicable to this application.
Second.
And this is that they're doing scientific research there, which isn't the case, so it's not applicable. Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. And I entertain a motion that the municipal council find that in accordance with section 17-10.15 registered marijuana dispensary usage of the zoning ordinance, that the use complies with the applicable provisions set forth herein and with the underlying district in which the land is located.
Second.
And with this one, the only concern with this was that there was a small amount of frontage on Pleasant Street, which I believe was residential, but we had a discussion about that, and the vast majority of the plot is within a zoning district, and that's the primary use, so we're fine with this one. Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. I entertain a motion to approve the application from Briarleaf LLC, 54 Taylor Road, Foxborough, Mass, for a special permit pursuant to Section 17-9.0 Special Permits and Section 17-10.15 Registered Marijuana Dispensary Uses to operate a registered marijuana dispensary. The subject premises being located at 527 Pleasant Street, more specifically, Assessor's Plat 225, lot number 5, located in an industrial zoning district, subject to the following 29 conditions. In those, seconded. In those 29 conditions were sent out in the email. And if there are concerns with those, we can revise those a little bit after this. They don't need to be finalized now, but it's good to have them ahead of time and generally sort of agree to what those are. So any questions?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. That concludes my business for the Zoning Land Use Committee tonight. Move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Zoning Land Use Committee is adjourned at 6:52.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody that has motions can send them my way. Call the City Council to order at 7 p.m. Please stand and join me in a salute to the flag. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. At this time, I'd entertain a motion to suspend the rules for the...
Second.
Oh, thank you. For the purposes to allow the mayor to address the council on an issue facing the water department. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, we'll have a roll call vote. We'll begin with Councilor Jackson.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Mr. Cobus?
Yes.
Vice President Perica?
Yes.
Mr. Delicio?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
President Cooper?
Yes.
11 yeas, no nays.
Thank you. Motion passes. Mayor Hurl?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Mr. President, through you, thank you to the council. This is an issue that has come to my attention recently, and I wanted to make sure I gave you a briefing on the issue because it's something that concerns our drinking water, and it's nothing that I would say anybody should be alarmed about. I want to start by saying that. So I have a prepared statement that I'm going to go ahead and take questions, as well as Courtney, our acting water superintendent, will have you take questions as well. So I'm here to provide the results of a recent DEP mandated sampling. First, it is important to know that the water treatment plant supplies was safe to drink. Okay, the water that the water treatment plant supplies was safe to drink when it left the water treatment plant. However, the city found through its mandated self-reported sample that the city is not in compliance with TTHM levels at 2 out of 4 sites. TTHMs are formed from the reaction of naturally occurring organics, stuff like leaves or animals, just naturally found in streams and ponds, and chlorine that is used to disinfect the water. In its simplest terms, the cause of this was that over the summer there was a lot of rain. The abundance of rain resulted in a decrease in water consumption for lawn care and keeping pool levels adequate for swimming. This left water in the distribution system with less turnover than in past years. As a result of decreased turnover, the chlorine in the water had more time to react with naturally occurring organics due to increased water age. That's what caused this problem. The water was basically sitting in the water system. Water turnover wasn't as great as we would hope it was because the water was coming down from the rain, and that's what people didn't need to supply city water to water their lawns or to fill up their pools. This is not reason for concern. Other communities have had very similar situations, this exact specific situation, in fact, with TTHMs not being in compliance. These include Providence, Swansea, Plainville, Hanover, Dartmouth, Brockton, Situate, Holliston, Walpole, Bellingham, and Fall River, all within the past several years. Plainville, this year specifically, it was in January. The acting water superintendent alerted me to this immediately after the mandated self-reporting. There was no immediate crisis. She and I spoke about it over numerous times over the phone until yesterday I met with her to get a full briefing on the matter. That's when she informed me that there were preventative measures that were taken to prevent this from happening in the first place, because the water department knows that this is a possible problem if water doesn't get turned over quick enough. Preventative measures taken to avoid this from happening include the following: spring and fall flushing of hydrants increases the water turnover in the system. Blow-offs leaving water running to increase the turnover. Slowed production at Wading River and increased production at West Street. And I'll let our acting superintendent explain why we would decrease somewhere and increase somewhere else. Running ozone to decrease the amount of chlorine needed to avoid the chemical reaction causing TTHMs. Storage tanks were decreased from 100-foot levels down to 70-foot levels to increase the water turnover. A water mixer was added at Oak Hill Tank to better circulate the water. Emptied tanks, excuse me, rephrase that, tanks were emptied and cleaned to decrease the amount of chlorine needed. Because again, it's chlorine interacting with naturally occurring organics that are just, they're just naturally occurring. That's what causes this. The magnitude of this problem should not be cause for alarm. What's not indicated here is we are just at the 2 locations, 2 out of the 4 locations, just over 1% and just over 3% respectively out of compliance. So it's not like we're wildly out of compliance. It's just 1%, just over 1% and just over 3%. The mandated language that you may have already read, provided by the state for public, so that language is provided by the state. For our public notification is necessary to let the public know about the possible, but not necessarily likely consequences of TTHMs being in drinking water. For example, I asked the water superintendent, would you drink the water? She said yes. I said, okay. Would you give it to your daughters? She said yes. I said, how long would it take at the current levels, just over 1% and just over 3% respectively, at the current levels of, how long would it take before it causes a health problem in someone? And she indicated it would take over 70 years of water consumption before there's actually a health consequence. So is there a problem? Yes. Is it something that we should be alarmed about? We should be proactive. We should make sure we're doing things to reduce this from happening in the first place, just like the other communities have. But this is nothing that I want people to be concerned about, and they should turn off their water and go start buying bottled water. That is not what I'm saying. That is not necessary. The water is, although we're not in compliance, it is safe to drink, if that makes any sense. So the reason I'm bringing this to you now is because, as you all know, I believe the public knows, our water superintendent is up for appointment, and, oh, you said,
Had an opportunity to talk about that before this. Is this going to be strictly on the water situation, or are you going to discuss it?
I
Point
am
of
not going to
order.
discuss her appointment. I'm not going to discuss her appointment.
Oh, point of order.
Yes,
Lori.
what is your
So
point?
my point of order is that this is an update with regards to, or an informative meeting with regards to the water concerns that we currently have. If we're going to mix other business that is in front of the municipal council this evening, then Councilor Blair would have to recuse himself. So I would prefer that, it would be my recommendation that we keep this specific to what you're here to talk to us about, not the other business that's in front of the council.
That's fair. So,
It's actually President Cooper who gets to make the ruling on that.
I agree. I think let's just be careful about the
timing?
the previous matter is
Okay.
closed in before the council, so I just want to make sure that we're cognizant of that.
I'll say this without talking about the appointment issue. It is important for me to tell you, the council and the public, about this, because to not tell you about it, I believe would be unethical. The city is not in compliance at 2 of the 4 sites, and a notice has to be given out. However, I want to get out in front of this and to basically say, I've researched the issue. I'm not alarmed about the issue. I am concerned, that's the best way I can put it. I am mindful of the issue and the need to get back into compliance levels. But after the research I've done on it, there is no need for anyone to turn off their faucets. And I thought it's very important for you and the public to hear that directly from me, and also put ourselves in a position where you can go ahead and ask us any questions. You can ask me any questions. I'll do the best I can to explain what I understand. And Courtney Winchell, our acting superintendent, is also here to answer any questions you might have. But I thought it was very important to not let the extent of the discussion of this be limited to just the public notifications. I wanted to get out in front of it and take the questions and answer.
Thank you. So the order I have here is Vice President Parika, Holmes, Delicio, Conti, Cobus.
Thank
Vice
you.
President Parika.
I have a couple of questions with regards to this, so thank you for coming down, and it is an important conversation to have out in the open. So can you tell me, 2 of the 4, what are the 2? What are the 2 areas that?
2 of the 4, one of them was the cemetery at, Thank you. North Purchase Cemetery was one testing site, and the other one was the post office on Pleasant Street. And the other two sites are a farm on Lindsay Street, Smith Farm on Lindsay Street, and then there was another one, no, I had backwards. Go ahead, hop in. There was 4 sites that are.
I'm sorry, the other 2 sites that are within compliance are Swanton's Furniture on Lindsay Street and Fines Farm on Smith Street.
Great. May I ask a follow-up?
Yes.
Thank you. So, as you listed, I did have a brief conversation with Barry about this earlier, and he did list off the other communities that, do they have similar water systems as ours? Because we're an open water system, so would, I could see where we might, where it's organic matter and things like that. How do those municipalities' water systems match up with ours that we're also not in compliance?
Most of them are actually very similar. They're typically surface waters that chlorinate. You don't typically find this in a well water system, and you won't find it at all unless you chlorinate the water for disinfection.
Thank you. And if I may, just one more question. What was the timeline on this? So when did the initial test results come back in stating that we were not in compliance? Like, what was the date of that?
It would have been 30 days ago tomorrow.
Okay. So those test results came back, you were aware of them 30 days ago?
And I was notified immediately. We started discussions. We had numerous discussions over the past 29 days. And yesterday, we finally had a full-on briefing about this. The reason I waited 29 days, well, in the initial discussions, it was nothing that I was concerned about that required immediate attention. It was something that is fair, as we said through the list of communities, this actually happens quite a bit. It doesn't just happen here in Massachusetts, it happened recently in Providence. If it was something that was like an immediate concern where people should not be drinking the water immediately, I certainly would have addressed the issue a lot sooner, but it was, this is not something that I wanted to, because of the timing of another issue, not address before the other issue is addressed. The other issue being an issue that would force Councilman Blair to recuse himself.
So I think that you and I may have handled that differently because it might have been good information to have instead of not having it. But I understand your point for that. So then I have one last question, because I was doing a little bit of, I was made aware of this circumstance, and so I was doing a little research myself, and you had stated that one of the conditions that, one of the ways to manage this problem moving forward was to turn on the ozone. What is that? Could you maybe help a girl out with the technical terms with regards to that?
Yeah, to operate the ozone system at West Street,
Sure.
which we had been doing, and unfortunately, right now, it's down for demo as part of the HVAC upgrade.
So my follow-up question to that, does that treatment at the West Street facility, does that go directly into the full system, or does it only treat at West Street?
The ozone system is at West Street alone, which Paul mentioned with what we're doing to try to handle this. That was part of the reason for slowing production from Wading River, so that we could bring more of the ozone-treated water from West Street instead.
And so the 2 out of the 4 that were not in compliance, are they fed by that West Street area?
The whole distribution system is actually fed by both plants.
Okay.
It depends, if you're closer to one plant or the other, you're more likely to get solely water from one plant or the other.
So then would the correction be that, so would turning that on at West Street, would that have helped reduce those 2 out of 4 quicker, faster, cleaned it up, or however you
It
phrase
could. It could.
Clearly not a water, not
Right.
my area of expertise, but go.
Right. Most of the sample sites, actually, with the exception of Fines Farm, are kind of on the line of where the water from the plants are actually mixing with each other.
Okay. That's all for now.
Council Holmes?
Thank you. A couple of the questions I had were similar about the sites, but when will the water be tested again?
We're due for testing again in February.
And if you do get results, will you be sure to let us know immediately in the future? Okay, thank you.
Can I speak to that for a moment? The way compliance is defined is that it's measured on a rolling basis. And so the if right now we're at 81 parts per billion, and that puts us in non-compliance. If we're at 79 parts per billion with these TTHMs, we are in compliance. So the threshold is 80 parts per billion. Now, that's measured on a moving average. So if we have a situation where we measure in February at all 4 sites that we are at 75 parts per billion, even though that's below that 80 threshold, we will still not be in compliance because it's over the course of 4 samples. It's not measured on just one. So in order for us to go from 81 parts per billion and 83 parts per billion at 2 sites down to a place where we would actually be in full compliance, the city would need to be, I think what we estimated was around 30 parts per billion in February in all of the different sites. That would put us in compliance. So when February rolls around and we report back that the site is now, all 4 sites are below 80 parts per billion, that's not going to leave us in compliance with the state. It has to be done on a moving average. The average will have to be over the 4 of them. I just want to be clear about that because it's not likely that we're going to be back in compliance anytime too soon, but that's not by fault of the quality of the water. It's simply a mathematical way of doing things. That's all that is.
I have one follow-up. So that would probably explain why the alert said that it's going to take 6 months to, you're
Yes.
estimating about 6 months. Okay, but still in February, there'll be some sort of numbers that will come out.
Yes.
All right, thank you. That concludes my comments.
Thank you. Thanks for coming down. I appreciate the information. A few questions I have is walk me through the monitoring process. Is this something that the water department monitors on a regular basis? Is this, because I believe me, I understand how state mandates, federal mandates can change on the drop of a dime. Fully understand that. What's compliance today, what's not in compliance today might have been tomorrow. Fully understand that. Is there any way we could have been a little more proactive on this? And I'm asking out of ignorance, not to put you on the spot.
Yeah, the way the sampling actually works, we're on actually a very set schedule. We have to sample once per quarter. We're given the months of February, May, August, and November, and we actually have to sample the second full week of the month. So I know Paul and Barry were asking yesterday, can we sample more? Can we do more and find out earlier? You really can't because the state will only count samples taken during that specific week.
Are you able to do your own samples, though, just to kind of get an idea where we're at?
Oh, we certainly will,
Okay.
yeah.
Is that something that has been done in the past, or?
No, this is actually a first for us. We haven't
Okay.
been out of compliance with these before.
And again, this is what TTHM is new to, I think, all of us. We talk about violations, and was it EPA or DEP?
DEP.
DEP, okay. So DEP, we said violations. Are there penalties that go along with that? What is it just kind of a, hey, you're out of compliance, let's get it fixed? What happens if it doesn't get fixed? Because I'm just trying to judge really the severity of it. I mean, I think if DEP comes down and says, there's no real punitive punishment or penalty, I think it speaks to that a little better. But I'm just curious about how that whole thing works.
Eventually, there would be. Right now, we're issued a notice of noncompliance. They give recommendations, actually most of what we were already doing before this happened. The other thing that they recommended was hiring a consultant, which I've already met with one, and I'm meeting with another one tomorrow for assistance on different directions of things that we could do to help this out.
Okay. And the last thing, and I'd be remiss if I didn't, so if you knew about this 30 days ago, I personally would have appreciated if, you could have just let us know. Maybe not the specifics, but last week when we were talking about the accomplishments and everything that else had happened, I think maybe a heads up that this could be coming down?
So the notification, the city has 30 days to notify, and there's only one requirement of the city to notify, and that is that the water department post this. We do a mailing is one thing, we put it in the newspaper is the other. We also put it on the city website.
Yep.
There's nothing that is required of the mayor or anybody to do above and beyond that. My reason here tonight is because it would be unethical for me to not talk about this considering that there is other pending business before the council, it would have been unethical to not discuss this before that other business is taken up. And I will stop there because we talked about that earlier, why we're going to stick to one limited issue. But yeah, it was.
Yeah, and I understand that kind of blurs the
But
line.
part of,
so-
yeah, and part of the issue that why the mailings are coming out now, they were put in the mailbox yesterday, is it takes several weeks to draft, get these to the printer. And
Sure.
if, Courtney, you want to explain why it takes so long, like what you went through for the procurement of it, why it takes 30 days to get this out to the public?
Right. Well, first we had to alert the state, which, again, within 24 hours, I actually talked to DEP the same day that I found out. They give you draft language for the notice. To cover myself, I emailed it back to him and said, is this exactly what you want? Got the answer yes. So that takes a couple days. We had to pull addresses for all of our residents in Attleboro, Mansfield, North Attleboro. Quotes from printers, including mailing, and this mailing wasn't funded as part of the budget, so I actually had to move money for it. And, with lining up a purchase order and everything, it actually took us till mid-last week to line up the printer.
No, and if I can just follow up, thank you. No, I fully understand that, and I understand the whole processes. Without kind of really blurring that line again, I guess just maybe would have been helpful to us as we're fielding calls before we were officially notified as a body. I think if anything, and I understand, and I appreciate seeing you here. I think that you're approaching it head on. Just in the future, if something like this happens, if we could have a little bit more heads up, because we're fielding calls from residents, and, we kind of found out about it same time, same way they did.
Yeah, this, as I said, the notification required is everything we're doing and within the timeline it's supposed to be done. My presence here is not because of a concern about this issue, it's because of the other issue that we have before the council.
Totally get it. I think we're looking at it through two different lenses. I'm asking for professional courtesy so we can address the concerns of the residents who read about it on the website.
Which went up yesterday.
Exactly, that's my point. So we found out about it at the same time that the residents found out about it. So I'm, just going forward, it's just professional courtesy of us having a heads up of some semblance before, we start finding out about it through the residents. So I'm done, thank you.
Thank you. Council Conti?
What is TTHM?
It's total trihalomethanes, and they're chlorinated and brominated carbon compounds.
What was the last one? Total
Halomethanes. Total trihalomethanes.
When did the state establish limits for the total trihalomethanes?
Their current limits and the current regulation began in 2013. And that's when we started averaging the results per site. Prior to 2013, starting in 2001, we had 4 sample sites where we used to take the average of all 4 of them. So if there was, for example, we have Smith Street, Fines Farm, which is still very low results. So the low results would bring the average down. And prior to 2001, the limit, again, was averaged for all the sites together, and the limit used to be 100 before
Limit was,
2000.
excuse me?
It used to be 100 parts per billion before
When was it
2000.
lowered to 80?
2001.
Okay. How often does the state receive a report that the TTHM has exceeded acceptable levels?
I'm sorry?
How often does the state receive a report that the TTHM has exceeded acceptable levels?
How often from us or from other departments?
From all sources?
When I first called DEP a few weeks ago and alerted them of this, he had told me there was a dozen other systems in the southeast region alone that were out of compliance.
And was that during this rain period?
It was actually during the same period.
So this has never happened to the city of Attleboro before?
No.
And I understand it's tested quarterly, but that you can test it more frequently. How expensive is the test?
Currently, I think we're paying $65 to $70 a test.
That's to an outside lab? So, I was chairman of city capital improvements and city development, and I don't remember, 5, 6, 7 years ago, when we put in the new SCADA system in the water department. And I suspect that if we're not using as much water, that SCADA system can measure how much the demand is and cut down on the supply. Is that true?
For
For the water department?
the water itself?
Yes.
Yeah, it can, and that's one of the things that we've been doing. The storage tanks out in the system, the full level is 100 feet of water in the tanks. And some of what we've been doing is cycling that level down to 70 feet instead. So just by taking that extra 30 feet out, we've actually taken 30% roughly of the water out of the system. So it'll allow it to turn over more frequently.
And obviously, that wasn't enough because you exceeded the levels.
Right.
So if you had gone to 50%, would that have done the job?
Well, there comes a point where you need to worry about water pressure in the system. You need to worry about storage if there's a fire. So we really can't bring the tanks much below where we are right now at 70 feet.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Council Cobus?
Hi, thank you for coming in. I do appreciate it. I have 3 relatively quick questions, and I'd just like to confirm my understanding when you talk about the average over 4 quarters. So my understanding, based on what you said and what I read online, is that this wasn't just 2 readings that we read, and they read 0.81 parts per billion and, what was it, 0.85 at 2 different locations. It wasn't just those 2 readings. We've been seeing readings over the past year that, when averaged together, exceeded the state minimum. Is that correct, in my understanding?
Yes and no. Again, it's based off of the average of the last 4 quarters. So you might have, we have February coming up. February's winter. The water's colder. These things don't form as easily in cold weather, cold water, so we're likely to have a low water. When you get into August and November, the water's still a little bit warm, so those tend to be higher. There's a separate report that you can do, and actually we did one over the summer for North Main Street, where you take, it's your previous 3 quarters and you double the most previous, and it kind of gives you a red flag to start, considering that, hey, there might be a problem next quarter. And we actually had to do one of those reports in August. But we were proactive actually before that. We weren't out of compliance. We weren't in danger at this point of being out of compliance, but we actually started being proactive back in April and May.
So would it be fair to say that the 2 readings around the summer, the middle of the year, were significantly higher, and then, so last February was potentially low, and then this November, were the readings from November 0.81 and 0.85? Is that?
Nope, that's
But
actually the
actual
average
total.
over the course of the year.
Okay, and so was it just these 2 locations at North Purchase Cemetery and Pleasant Street that were getting the high readings, or like during the summer, were we seeing these high readings across all 4 locations?
Well, again, summer, August and November tend to be our highest quarters anyway, for all 4 sites. They always have been. We're seeing higher in the past at the Lindsay Street location as well, but we're not on Smith Street.
Okay. So, but the average, so we have seen high readings throughout the year. It's not like this just came in November and then all of a sudden. And we're reporting it, that the state mandate is 30 days to report, is that correct? To publish the information?
Yes.
And so we're doing that.
Yes.
Now, one of the things I know, Mayor, you mentioned on the website that if this was an emergency and if you had been concerned, we would have pushed the information out much sooner to the public. Can you talk about how we would have done that? Is that when we would have used like the reverse 911, or how would that have happened?
Likely, if I was concerned about this, it would have been a posting on the city website and a notification, a press release to the Sun Chronicle to let people know. And if we needed to move up this by a reverse 911 or by doing a mailing even sooner, somehow trying to speed up that process, I'm not sure if that's even possible because of the way procurement laws work. We would have explored that too, but at the minimum, it would have been letting the Sun Chronicle know as well as posting it on our city website. We could also let AACS know. There's a couple different ways. But this is, as I said though, the water is something that Courtney would drink. She would give it to her daughters. I drink it. I haven't changed my consumption habits at all. And as we indicated, if nothing changed and people continue to drink water for over 70 years, that's how long it's going to take for a problem to develop. So the state has levels that we have to be in compliance with for safety reasons, and you don't have your 80 parts per billion threshold, and anything above that be a problematic. It's it's within a margin of like a cushion, if you will. There's that level of safety that you can have.
Perfect. And then my last question, just to follow up on what Councilor Delicio said, and as far as asking for the professional courtesy to have been notified sooner, at least internally, that would have been useful, and I would have appreciated that. But when we're talking about this having gone on for 3 quarters, and then we just took the reading in November and all of a sudden exceeded the state mandates, my question is, do we have any other similar readings like this where we're sort of on the verge of exceeding state mandates that would be useful for us to know about now?
Yeah, and again, there was 7 specific things that we outlined that were 7 action steps that were taken as these were going up, as the levels are going up. These are things that the water department did to try and prevent this. So there was no negligence. There was no mistakes. Sometimes chemistry wins, and that's what happened in this case. Chemistry won. But if there had been any other, it's happened in lots of other places. So it's a fairly common problem.
Any other questions or comments for the mayor? Or Courtney? Thank you both for coming.
Very good.
Thank you.
There are, moving right along, there are no joint public hearings this evening. There are 2 public hearings. Ms. Ravad, would you kindly read the notice for the first public hearing?
Public hearing relative to the request from National Grid to replace direct buried cable with new 1-2 AL cable inside PVC conduit throughout Osberg Drive. This underground cable is fed from riser P8149 on Slater Street.
Thank you. Is there anyone here to speak in favor?
President Cooper, my understanding is the gentleman that's here from National Grid is here specifically to speak about the next public hearing, not this one in particular. So I would ask that we continue this public hearing until we can get someone here from National Grid to talk about Augsburg Drive.
Sure.
Because I do feel that is very important for us to find out what's going, because that street's a little complicated, so yes, thank you.
Thank you. I'm in agreement. I'm sure he's probably going to say a similar, give us a similar story.
Anymore.
And then we'll go through, just in case there was anyone else here that read the notice that might want to speak in favor or against, we'll go through that, but then we'll continue it as you
Thank you.
suggest. Thank you. Thank you.
Is it okay to start on the next one?
No,
Not yet.
not yet.
Until they
Sorry.
call.
Just this one. We're on the Augsburg Drive first. Is there anyone else here to speak in favor? Is there anyone to speak in opposition? Anyone neither for nor against? So we will keep that public hearing open the next
It's gonna be like January,
January,
right? Hold on, no, you don't want them on the 8th, right?
it won't be the 8th, that's a special meeting.
15,
After that. 24th,
22,
January
maybe
22nd.
22.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So that public hearing is continued till January 22nd, 2019. Ms. Provide, would you read the notice of the second public hearing this evening, please?
Public hearing relative to the request from National Grid and Verizon to install 5 new poles and relocate pole number 6234 and renumber to number 1 at Dale Court Extension, Attleboro.
Thank you. Is there anyone here to speak in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Al Galvin, design engineer with National Grid, Hopedale office. Pole in question would be that first pole entering the new development of Dale Court, so it'd be 6234. And what they were looking to do, the pole needed to be replaced due to its condition as it was, very old, it was leaning. So that was due for replacement as it was. And in order to even out the spans between the new lines that we're bringing in to feed the development, the new pole was moved closer to Pleasant, about 30 feet, and they're going to anchor it from there, since the primary idea of anchoring across the street, which they normally would do, was we weren't given an easement from that landowner. So what we did is we adjusted the spot of the new pole 1 in a spot where we could fit the anchors there and support the weight and the tension of those new lines going in for Dale Court.
Great. Any questions for the gentleman? Mr. Jackson?
Not any question, I just want everybody to know, Dale Court, it's funny, because I was actually on the planning board back then when that was first approved, when it was being approved. So it's taken that long for them to actually get going on this. So Dale Court is down, if you're heading from the center of town, you're heading towards Norton on 123. Dale Court is off of Dorchester on the right-hand side. So just so you're all familiar with where the gentleman's speaking about.
Great, thank you. Any other questions or comments for the gentleman? Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Is there anyone else here to speak in favor?
Thank you.
Is there anyone here to speak in opposition? Anyone to speak neither for nor against? Councilor Jackson, do you see any reason to keep that public hearing
I do
open?
not.
That public hearing is closed. Thank you. At this time, we'll move right along to the mayor's, reading of the mayor's communication.
December 18, 2018. Dear municipal councilors, I respectfully submit a communication from Director of Council on Aging, Madeline McNeely, regarding the need for funds to replace several emergency lights and exit signs. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body to transfer $4,875 from account number 1124100-578300 citywide reserve fund for transfer to account 154-11000-524011 Council on Aging Maintenance of Buildings. Upon approval, the available balance in the reserve fund for transfer will be $192,987.84. Copies are in your packet.
Budget and Appropriations Committee, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Building Commissioner William McDonough regarding the need for funds to cover the cost of overtime due to the continued leave of absence for one of the local inspectors. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body to transfer $10,000 from account 1124100-578300 citywide reserve fund for transfer to account 1240100-513000 protective inspection overtime. Upon approval, the available balance in reserve fund for transfer will be $182,987.84. Copies in your packet.
Personnel and Human Services Committee, please.
I respectfully submit a communications from Building Commissioner William McDonough regarding the need for funds to cover the cost to pay an alternative electrical inspector due to the leave of absence of one of the electrical inspector. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body to transfer $4,500 from account 1124100-578300 citywide reserve fund for transfer to account 1240100-530101 protective inspection professional services. Upon approval, the available balance in reserve fund for transfer will be $178,487.84. Copies in your packet.
Personnel and Human Services Committee, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Director of Veteran Services Ken Bodicher regarding the donation of $25 in Dunkin' Donut gift certificates from Patricia Vieira in memory of her late husband, Joseph R. Vieira. In accordance with Section 1-12 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro, I hereby request your honorable body to accept these generous donations to the City of Attleboro. Copies are in your packet.
City Property and Claims Committee, please.
For your information, I regret to inform your honorable body, we have received the resignation of Jim Hanley from the Historical Commission. Please join me in thanking Mr. Hanley for his service to the city.
It's an FYI.
I respectfully submit a communication from Attleboro Public Schools Director of Finance, Mark Furtado, regarding FY 2018 fiscal obligations that were not received in time to be processed in the normal FY 2018 business cycle. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body to authorize the school department to pay these previous year school bills totaling $2,112.68 as identified in Mr. Furtado's communication.
Budget and Appropriations Committee, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Attleboro Public School Director of Finance, Mark Furtado, regarding the need for an appropriation from the E-rate stabilization fund in order to purchase a variety of technical items. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body to appropriate $46,476.42 from account 8505-599000 E-rate stabilization fund, other financing uses, to fund 2701-499000 E-rate IT fund, other financing service. Copies in your packet.
Budget and Appropriations Committee.
Sincerely, Paul Haru, Mayor.
Thank you. We'll go on to the reading of the other communications.
A communication dated December 5th, 2018, from Attorney Jack Jacoby III for a continuance request for the 5 public hearings for 70 and 76 Frank Mossberg Drive to be continued to January 15th, 2019.
Zoning and Land Use Committee, please.
A communication dated December 6, 2018, from Major Bloom LLC of 50 Loring Street, Hyde Park, Mass., regarding a community outreach meeting for a proposed registered marijuana dispensary at 20 John Williams Street, Attleboro. No application for a special permit has been filed with the city.
It's an FYI to all councilors.
An application dated December 13th, 2018, from attorney Thomas Reedy on behalf of Cumberland Farms, Inc., for a new license to store flammables and combustibles at 633 Washington Street, Attleboro. This requires a,
Yeah, zoning, actually, that's going to go to the Licensing Committee. Councilor Dolan, would you like to call for a public hearing on February 5th, 2019?
Yes, please.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. We will have a public hearing for that matter on February 5th, 2019.
an application dated December 17th, 2018, from Papagenos, Inc., 103 Pleasant Street, Attleboro, for a coin-operated amusement device license.
The License Committee, please.
Correspondence from resident Gerald Chase of Nick Brock Road discussing the Committee for Tax Abatement Review dated December 17th, 2018.
The Special Committee on Tax Abatement, please.
And that's all I have.
Thank you. At this time, I'd entertain a motion to go into Committee of the Whole.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Is there anyone here that would like to address the council at this time? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to arise.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. We are moving right along to committee reports, and we will start, as usual, with Councilor Jackson.
Reporting for Public Works Committee, I have no business before my committee this evening, but would like to call for a meeting at the appropriate time next year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Waterman.
Thank you. So, begin the Personnel and Human Services Committee.
I would like to, from the docket of December 18th, 2018, I would move to approve the request of the mayor to confirm the appointment of Paulo Seguro Jr., 9 Richard Street, to the Traffic Study Commission, term to expire February 2021.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order. Any comments, Council Biden?
The only comment I would make is in all my dealings with Paulo, he's very upstanding, he's highly intelligent, and he's responsible. And I would expect that you will tackle this issue and do a great job. Thank you.
Vice President Frica.
Thank you, President Cooper. My apologies for not being here last week when Paulo presented in front of your committee. I did have an opportunity to speak to him this evening prior to our council meeting as the ad hoc committee counselor for the Traffic Study Commission. I'm appreciative that we're having Paulo be appointed to the traffic study. We struggle on a regular basis to maintain a quorum, so adding some individuals, especially people who are so enthusiastic about doing more for their community, it makes it even better because I know he's going to show up. So that makes me really happy. I would, again, I know that I've done this previously, I will encourage the mayor to search and find qualified candidates for the Traffic Study Commission. We were notified, or the commission themselves was notified of the retirement of one of our board members that will be effective in February. My suggestion would be, we frequently see a lot of firefighters and police officers that retire and come through here. That might be something if someone's looking to do a little something in their retirement. come and play with us on the Traffic Study Commission. I know I'm getting a little bit off, but I look forward, I welcome Paulo. I look forward to his comments and his input on the Traffic Study Commission. They're always open to the public every first Thursday of every month. So we'll see you January 3rd. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, this requires a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Motion passes.
From the docket of December 4th, 2018, I move to approve the request of the mayor to confirm in accordance with Section 3.3B, the Attleboro Home Rule Charter, the appointment of Courtney Wanchel to fill a 3-year term as Superintendent of Water, term to expire February 2021.
Second.
Thank you.
Thank you. Motion is in order. Just for the record, Council Blair is abstaining from this and has
Right.
left the
Bless you.
chamber.
So I have had the opportunity to visit Acting Superintendent Wanchel at her office to get a terrific tour, which I would recommend to anybody. It was very obvious to me that she has a great deal of expertise in this area, but was also obvious to me when we walked around, we met 5 or 6 of the employees, and they related to her with a great deal of respect, and she returned that respect. And from the time that I was able to have with her, I was quite impressed.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Hearing,
I do.
Council Jackson.
Thank you very much, President Cooper. First of all, I was very impressed with how she answered all of your questions. I had no idea that we had an issue going on. I'm sorry that the people that have called you didn't call me. We're on Public Works. That's disheartening. But I think she handled all your questions extremely well, and she handled questions last week. Even though we are not part of personnel, we do not interview, she did a great job. And she has worked her way up the ladder. She has earned everything she needs to learn to become the superintendent. She didn't just have someone rewrite a job description, and she didn't step in at step 4 or step 6. She earned her way up the ladder, and for that I will be supporting her this evening.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Council DeLisio.
I do just want to take a second to thank all of the employees of the water department who have reached out to me, especially since July. I did miss the last vote due to a family issue, but I have heard from several water department employees, and I do want to thank you for reaching out.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, this requires a roll call vote, and we'll begin with Council Holmes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
No.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Mr. Delizio?
Yes.
Vice President Perica?
Yes.
Mr. Cobus?
No.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
President Cooper?
Yes.
7 yeas, 2 nays.
It's an 8,
No,
it's an 8 yeas and 2 nays.
8. 8 nays.
8 yeas.
8 yeas, 2 nays.
Thank you, motion passes.
From the docket of November 20th, 2018, I move to approve the request of the mayor to accept the memorandum of agreement with the Attleboro Crossing Guards Association, which amends the current collective bargaining agreement to meet the upcoming changes in the minimum wage rate. It is anticipated that current funding levels within the budget should be sufficient to cover this increase.
Second?
Thank you, motion's in order.
Well, this just brings up the wages of those who are not making minimum wage as of January 1st, those who are below $12 to the $12 figure. And I consider this following state law.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, this requires a roll call vote, and we'll begin with Counsel Jackson.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Mr. Cobus?
Yes.
Vice President Perica?
Yes.
Mr. Delizio?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
President Cooper?
Yes.
11 yeas, no nays.
Thank you, motion passes.
From the docket of November 20th, 2018, I move to approve the request of the mayor to confirm the appointment of Patricia D. Svensson at 301 Pike Avenue to the Board of Library Trustees, term to expire February 2020.
Second?
Thank you.
Thank you, motion's in order. Any other questions or comments?
I find Mrs. Svensson a highly knowledgeable librarian in her own right, somebody that we should be proud to have on our Board of Trustees at the library.
Any other questions or comments? Counsel Holmes.
Thank you. It was quite impressive to hear her talk about every sentence out of her mouth was, oh, in this country, I helped create a life. It was great. So I think it's great to have her aboard.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, this requires a voice vote. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you, motion passes 11-0.
This ends the business of the Personnel Committee. Call for a committee meeting at the appropriate time.
Thank you. Counsel Conti.
Thank you, Mr. President. Reporting for Capital Improvement and City Development Committee. From the docket of December 18, 2018, I move to approve the request of the mayor that the city of Attleboro engage in a national grid on-bill repayment program for 36 months to reimburse the installation of reduced energy lighting upgrades. Based on the estimated timeline for the project completion and the projected cost, the amount for fiscal year 2019 is $32,499.24. As this is an estimate, the amount may require adjustments near the end of the fiscal year. Therefore, the mayor requesting your honorable body to transfer $32,499.24 from account 1124100-578300, citywide reserve fund for transfer to the following: $9,898.02 to account 1124100-587385, citywide retrofit lights. $10,360.86 to account 112201000-587385, fire retrofit lights. And finally, $12,240.36 to account 161-01000-587385, library retrofit lights.
Second?
Thank you, motion's in order. Counsel Conti.
Yes, Mr. President. This $32,499.24 is through a program from National Grid, which is asking its municipal clients to upgrade their lighting to save energy. And what National Grid would do is hire a company named E&E Systems, which is a subcontractor that does light install and energy-saving retrofits, to install new lighting in the Attleboro Public Library, the Attleboro City Hall, and the South Attleboro Police Station. The lighting that is being installed by E&E Systems is the latest and greatest. In fact, I was shocked to learn that the lights in the library can be adjusted with a cell phone. How cool is that? So they can dim lights, they can brighten lights, they can shut them off from home. And the lights are, they look like standard lights, but they're not. They're LED and they're energy efficient. But best of all, the return on investment past the 36 months of the $32,499 continues through the life of the fixtures, which, while they have a 5-year guarantee, are estimated to be, well, depending on when technology supersedes the current technology, probably happen before the fixtures fail. And that concludes my comments.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Council Cobus?
With the upcoming work on the library, is there a way to remove the library from this and then apply for this or do this again down the road after potentially the library's been upgraded? I feel like we're spending, was it $6 to $8 million on repairing the roof and doing all sorts of work. I would assume some of that is going to happen inside. Have you looked into potentially removing the library from this? And if we don't do this now, can we apply for this program again in the future? That concludes my comments.
So I have not looked into eliminating the library because I would not recommend eliminating the
Okay.
library. Every day that the library is using its current incandescent fixtures, it is wasting precious tax dollars, and I highly recommend these fixtures be replaced in the Attleboro Public Library as soon as possible. None of the renovation work in the Attleboro Public Library involves light fixtures. The work in the Attleboro Public Library is roofing, windows, walls, and air conditioning. So the lighting fixtures being replaced in the Attleboro Public Library begin to save the city money the day they're installed.
Any other questions or comments? So, Council Holmes, I don't think was here for the reading of this motion, so we won't vote on this.
Okay.
Ms. Ravad. Any other questions or comments? This requires a roll call vote, and we'll begin with Councilor Blair.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Mr. Delizio?
Yes.
Vice President Perica?
Yes.
Mr. Cobus?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
President Cooper?
Yes.
10 yeas, no nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
From the docket of December 18th, 2018, I move to approve the request of the mayor regarding the need for capital repairs to the Sanford Street Municipal Parking Garage. Therefore, the mayor hereby requests this honorable body to appropriate $375,000 from account 100-35900, undesignated fund balance, free cash, general government, to fund 3554 Sanford Parking Garage.
Second.
Thank you. Motion's in order. Any questions or comments? Council Conti.
Yes, Mr. President. The Director of Finance, who's responsible for the parking garage, has engaged the engineering report of the current conditions of the Sanford Street parking garage, and it's very clear that the spalling of cement, the failure of the drainage, the exposed reinforcing beams, and the degrading pavement and surrounding sidewalks are reaching a depreciated level whereupon if we expend these funds now, we can preserve the life of the parking garage. The parking garage has a fee system that generates income to the city. And the chief financial officer responded to our request to get a breakdown of that over the past 4 years. And it has a grand total of revenues ranging from a low of $64,596 in a year to a high of $85,350 in a year. Those funds, I believe, are put into a revolving account, and that revolving account is applied, and I forget where. But in the future, I plan to examine that, because if we had 5 years ago taken revenues from the Sanford Street parking garage and placed it in a revolving fund expressly for the capital improvement of the Sanford Street parking garage, we would not need any money from this council at this time. So I plan in the future, number one, I encourage the council to pass this measure tonight. And in the future, I plan to examine more deeply where these dollars have gone in the past, and to establish, and there's a very narrow window of time when I can establish a new revolving account for the monies of this parking garage to no longer be used for anything other than the capital improvement of the Sanford Street parking garage. So, this is a piece of equipment that is owned by the taxpayers is not only in decay, but the decay is accelerating. Now that water can get into the areas of the concrete that have spalled, the decay is going to accelerate. And it is my opinion and my recommendation to the council that we discontinue that accelerated depreciation by expending this $375,000, of which $100,000 is coming from Massachusetts Chapter 90 dollars. So the real impact on our budget is only $275,000 coming from the free cash general government fund, which is at its highest level, Mr. President, than in the past 9 years of which I've been on the council. So the funds are there. We've used the funds traditionally for capital improvements. This capital improvement has a dire need. To delay the repair of this garage at this time surely means far greater funds are going to need to be extended in the near future, and that concludes my comments.
Thank you. Can I just clarify one of the comments you made? You said only 275. I thought it was 375 from undesignated fund, free cash general government, and 100,000 from Chapter 90, making it a grand total of 475.
You're correct. I got confused.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Council Kovas.
Thank you. I too will be supporting this, and I was hesitant to do so based on, I want to see the usage numbers and whatnot, and we were provided that. And it was news to me. I wasn't aware of the parking agreements we have with the BART system or with Park Street condos. And I had reached out to Barry earlier today and received copies of those agreements. And one of the things with the Park Street condos, one of the stipulations there is that we need to maintain this garage as part of that agreement. So that was interesting to me. The other thing I had asked about that I figured I would share with the council is what the cost was to the city to maintain this garage roughly on an annual basis. And the response was roughly $5,000. I think it was for the previous year, but that covers maintenance and painting things, and Barry's fairly creative with finding ways to remove graffiti and using county support in their graffiti unit to help remove graffiti. So it was roughly $5,000 annually for utilities and maintenance. So on average, this is bringing in $65,000 a year. And we have agreements to maintain it, so therefore I'll be supportive of it. That concludes my comments.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments, Council Delosio?
Thank you. Just a comment. Council, thank you for getting all that research. As some of us remember, probably about 5 or 6 years ago, we did a tour down there. I know Council Thibodeau was still on it at the time, and we looked at the garage, we looked at the parking lot behind where the Village Pizza used to be. I'm blanking on the name right there. However, you know, the other thing this does, and I don't want to belabor the points, but it adds parking downtown, which I think that one of the biggest things that we hear as counselors is parking downtown. I know a lot of people, I was stopped at the Y this weekend and say, we park there on a Saturday, we work out, we walk down to Moran's, we get our breakfast, we come back, So I think it's more than just looking at the parking garage. So I do appreciate you bringing in, because the other thing that was happening is before the city entered into these agreements, there was a lot of shuffling because it's 2-hour parking. So you had employees of local businesses parking their car, going to work, and then every 2 hours they were coming out and they're shuffling their car, or they're gonna get a ticket. So, it's more than just the garage on the corner of Sanford Street. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, this requires a roll call vote, and the vote will begin with Council Jackson.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Mr. Cobus?
Yes.
Vice President Parika?
Yes.
Mr. Delicio?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
President Cooper?
Yes.
11 yeas, no nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. President. That concludes the business the Capital Improvement and City Development Committee has to bring before the council this evening. We look forward to a committee meeting at the next appropriate time.
Thank you. Council Conti, again.
Thank you, Mr. President. Reporting for the special committee on the council's rules of procedure from the docket of February 5th, 2018, I move to approve the allowance of council members the use of non-cellular devices such as tablets, in addition to request the administration to investigate the possibility of supplying council members with tablets to be used at meetings, to provide members with electronic copies of agendas, committee minutes, motions, etc., and decrease the use of paper in the council office.
Second.
Thank you. Motion's in order, Council Conti.
Mr. President, this measure has been delayed in being introduced to the councilor for years for a variety of reasons. And we've met with Management of Information Systems Director Bill Lennox, who said there will be no Wi-Fi in City Hall available for the city councilors, and that there will be no way for city councilors in the municipal chambers to access a municipal system Wi-Fi. So we're at a point where we could put electronic communications here, laptops or tablets, computers, that could store all of this electronically and be available at the click of a few search buttons rather than the constant flipping and searching of papers. Additionally, we would be able to store in such devices rules and procedures and laws that govern our behavior, which would be available on an instant search basis. So as we're sitting here and we're thinking, what's the rule, what's the ordinance, what's the law, what's the Massachusetts general law, all of that would be available at our fingertips. I believe that the time for the moratorium of electronic devices in this chamber has passed, because I see other municipalities, some smaller than the city of Attleboro, councilors at the table and selectmen at the table with electronic devices doing exactly what I've just described. I believe that the Committee for Rules and Procedures has taken a wise step forward to recommend to the council to allow these devices in these chambers, and I recommend my councilors support the measure, because the committee, in addition, has been working very hard on the new rules and procedures, which were circulated to councilors today, that is a long and explicit description on the use of technology. And I do expect those new rules and procedures to be accepted by the council in the near future. And I do expect that this body, with the caliber of persons that are in this body, will use these electronic devices to their best advantage. So it is without fear that I make this recommendation to the council. I believe that in 2018, it's time. And that concludes my comments.
Thank you. Vice President Brika.
Thank you, President Cooper. Well, I very much support this motion. I do have just a question with regards to the wording of the motion, where one is a motion to approve that the council members can use non-cellular devices, and then I would think as a secondary motion, I would make refer to the administration the rest of that. maybe you don't have to? I'm just curious about that.
I'm okay with it being together because the likelihood of the recommendation to purchase tablets for the council is
Right.
probably slim to none, but if you don't ask, you won't know the answer, though we can all speculate what it might be. Council Conti today did send to all of us more explicitly the rules around technology. That's why I'm okay with the way that it's voted before the council tonight. And then we did have a great meeting, 2.5 hours or so last week, and went through each of the sections to review, and I'll give that another look and likely have another follow-up meeting right after the first of the year, and then bring it before the council. So I think it's good. There were some takeaways, which I know Council Conti's working and Council Cobus are working to reach out to the cable company around goosenecks and other types of recommendations for the sound. But I think we're in a much better place. We're moving it forward, and it lets everybody know that this is what this council wants to do.
Thank you.
Okay with it. Council Cobus.
I move to amend this motion to delete the words non-cellular devices and tablets, period, and replace it with cell phones, tablets, and laptops.
Second.
Thank you. Hold on. Cell phone, say that it's cell phones.
Cell phones, tablets, and laptops, period.
Thank you. So on the amendment, any discussion on the amendment? Council Blair?
I understand your laptops and whatnot, but why do you need to use a cell phone here? You could use a cell phone and be talking to somebody then.
Go ahead.
We had discussed and gone back and forth about whether or not to allow the use of cellular data and whether or not it interfered with the microphones. And ultimately, the committee decided that we wanted to allow that to be enabled. But as part of the rules and recommendations that were sent out, we decided to in the rules say that people should not be posting to Facebook and whatnot, as well as to leave it in the discretion of the president or the chair that if these devices happen to be distracting or that there's an issue of some sort, that the president or chair can say, all right, put all your devices away and restrict the use of devices for the remainder of the meeting.
Excuse me, ma'am.
So, sure, go ahead.
We had to discuss, I'm not computer savvy, but I realize we've reached the point that most everybody is, and it's definitely a plus to have a tablet or, a computer or a tablet. But we've discussed a cell phone. We could have an important vote coming before this council, and the phone could go beep beep, and you got a text, and it's Johnny Jones that's much in favor or disfavor of a vote. And I think it's a way for the outside people to get involved. Unless I'm, this guy, I can see the rest of it. I can't see permitting cell phones to be part of the electronic devices.
Council Conti, do you want to
Yes.
answer that, because we discussed that?
I really need to,
Thank you.
because cell phones are no longer phones alone. I wear 2 hearing aids, and this is a software program called TrueLink. And what TrueLink allows me to do is during Attleboro Municipal Council is to turn up the volume so that I can hear soft-speaking people address the council. I also can change the program from a normal program to an auditorium program, which instantly makes it capable of hearing anything that's being whispered in that back row. The disability of not being able to hear and the expense of the 2 hearing aids have become a big part of my life because it's enabled me to function at 100%. The cell phone also, in addition to being a cell phone, has a calculator, which allows me to do calculations, and it has a button application that allows me to access the internet. And the function of this little device has gotten to be so capable as my Surface tablet computer. So this device, while it does connect to conversations electronically, is no longer a phone. It is a miniature tablet. It's a miniature laptop. It is capable of doing everything a tablet and a laptop can do, and more. So the rules and procedures that are coming out to the council in the future, Mr. President, prohibit the councilors from communicating with anyone in the chambers on a cell phone, either by text or by voice or by email. And if a councilor violates those rules, and councilors have violated those rules in the past, the camera systems that are in this chambers are capable of zooming in to every councilor who's sitting in a seat and has a device sitting in front of them and can see exactly what is on that screen in high definition. We have had councilors that would sit here and watch sports games while the chambers were in session. I know, I saw it personally.
The game or? Sorry.
And the public who votes for a counselor every 2 years has the right to not allow that person to continue to sit at this honorable table. So an abuse of this device, I believe, will lead the public to no longer support the person abusing the device. Additionally, the rules and procedures allow you, Mr. President, to reprimand people who are using the device to text, to email, to call, and communicate with people on the outside through the device. So because of that, Councilor Blaze, I think that we're walking into the electronic age with sufficient caution that this honorable body, the way I know these councilors, that's not going to be a problem. And that concludes my comments.
Thank you, Mr. Conti, for your education on that particular phone. Like I said, I'm not as advanced, believe me, as you are, but I would hesitate to allow a phone in, because I know that there is the opportunity to receive a text or something that I would hope nobody here would accept. But it's, and I'm sure you would. And it's just another avenue to be influenced by somebody on the outside if it was a crucial vote.
Any other questions on the or comments on the amendment?
Yes, thank you. The cell phone, I think, is important if we're going to be doing this, and the reason I say that, because you touched on it, Rick, I was hoping you were going to go, it also serves as a hotspot for the internet. It's a hotspot so you can be able to get the internet through your computer. I think this is a long time coming. I appreciate the manner in which Mr. Conti has ushered this through. I understand, but I mean, realistically, Councilor Blair, people can just pull out their cell phone right now as it is and still do it. So, you know, I think this way here, we're in front of it. We're giving control to something that ordinarily we hadn't had control of in the past. I think it's the right thing to do. This is just from today. So, you know, I think there's a cost savings that we'll ultimately see from it as well, although perhaps relatively minuscule. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments on the amendment? Hearing none, need to vote the amendment first, and we will do that by roll call, beginning with Councilor Blair.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Mr. Delicio?
Yes.
Vice President Perica?
Yes.
Mr. Kobus?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
President Cooper?
Yes.
11 yeas, no nays.
Thank you. The motion to amend passes. Is there any other question or discussion on the motion as amended? Hearing none, this requires a roll call vote, and we'll begin with Councilor Jackson.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Mr. Kobus?
Yes.
President Perica?
Yes.
Mr. Delicio?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
President Cooper?
Yes.
11 yeas, no nays.
Thank you, motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's a monumental day in the history of Attleboro. That is all the business that the special committee on the council's rules and procedures has to bring before the council this evening. Stay tuned for our visit again in the near future. Thank you, Mr. President. We look forward to a meeting at the next appropriate time.
Thank you. Council Cobus?
Reporting for the Zoning and Land Use Committee. From the docket of September 11th, 2018, I move to approve the request of the mayor to lay out Rathburn Willard Drive and Brennan Way as public ways in any related drainage, water, or sewer facilities or easements pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 82, Section 2, and pursuant to Section 16-2.1 of the revised ordinance of the City of Attleboro, as amended, all as shown on the plan and profile entitled City of Attleboro, Massachusetts Layout Plan and Profile, Rathburn Willard Drive and Brennan Way by Kesley Booz Associates Incorporated, Stephen R. Garvin, P.E., Todd M. Chapman, PLS, dated August 31st, 2018, horizontal scale 1 inch equals 40 feet, vertical scale 1 inch equals 4 feet, which plan and profile have been deemed satisfactory to the Superintendent of Public Works.
Second.
Thank you, motion's in order. Council Cobus?
We've discussed this, we had the public hearing about it, discussed a committee last week and mentioned the 3 recommendations from the traffic committee. I'll defer to Councilor Parika to discuss those if she chooses. So I think it's fairly straightforward. This is needed as part of moving forward with the high school.
Thank you. Any other questions? Vice President Fricker?
Thank you, President Cooper. So, first of all, thank you, Councilor Cobus, for reading the recommendation from the Traffic Study Commission at your last committee meeting with regards to, again, I apologize for not being here. We discussed this at length during the Traffic Study Commission, and there were Jack Jacoby came in, he made a presentation similar to the one that we saw during the public hearing, and there were a couple of things that were very important to the Traffic Study Commission that would be heavily considered / implemented when we open up these streets. One is the installation of a T-type intersection to access Brennan Middle School, allowing for distinct sight lines for turning traffic. The installation of permanent speed tables, the number and location, which should be determined by the traffic engineers to ensure safety in the vicinity of all 3 schools affected by this project. That was heavily part of the consideration, is that we have Studley, we have Brennan, and we have the high school. There'll be the ability for people to traverse all of the roads at any given time, and we wanted to ensure that speed, unlike speed humps in a residential neighborhood, speed humps in this particular area would be incredibly successful. It was a paramount concern that the lighting is appropriate, that we have enough crosswalks, that they're illuminated. So the installation of rectangular rapid flashing beacons, or RFBs, at crosswalks in the project scope, as well as the roadway alongside Studley. They did provide a link to take a look and see what we're talking about there, but we've seen them in we don't have any of them here in Attleboro, but I'm confident you've seen them in other communities where if there's a pedestrian there's a flashing sign. It makes everybody completely aware that there are individuals looking to cross. The last part of it is that they did make a footnote to this thing. Additionally, we consider the Attleboro High School roadway enabling project as emphasizing the need for the installation of the traffic light at Rathburn Willard Drive and Thatcher Street. The design has been previously reviewed and commented upon. We're waiting on information from the DPW director. There's some small changes that are looking to be implemented. It's been 15 long years, and now, as part of the approval of the design build for the high school, it took into consideration that traffic light being there. I think it would be imprudent for us to move forward on any scale without implementing that light, because it's going to, people are going to be able to have access to Rome Boulevard, to Rathburn Willard, and we're going to need to mediate that somehow. So again, they wanted that to be specifically highlighted when it was discussed here this evening. And that concludes my comments.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Council Holmes?
And I don't know if Vice President Perica or Council Cobus can help me understand this, but I know that there were recommendations, and I asked last week, and it suggested that they take those recommendations, but what would happen if they started this and decided something needed to be adjusted, or they didn't accept them, or I guess how does everything happen now?
Do you want me?
If you
Rock,
don't
paper,
mind.
scissors. So when we had this discussion with Mr. Jacoby, he brought it right immediately back to the planners, saying that this is, if you would like our support with regards to the approval of the opening of these roadways, this is how it needs to be done. I have, Jack has been part of this community for more years than any of us can count, and he's shepherded projects such as this to successful completion and satisfactory completion. I have every confidence that he took the concerns of the Traffic Study Commission to heart and will have them be part of the plan. Don't think I won't be asking him every time, hey, just so you know, how are we doing with these? Because it would be, truthfully, in my opinion, if these weren't adhered to, again, the Traffic Study Commission is a recommendation, that they can merely make recommendations, but they're an incredibly brilliant group of people, and I think it would be incredibly insulting to them and any other volunteer in our community if the recommendations that they make with regards to this particular project specifically, where it links all 3 schools, I think that would be troublesome for them.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, this requires a roll call vote, and the vote will begin with Council Blair.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Mr. Delizio?
Yes.
Vice President Perica?
Yes.
Mr. Cobus?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
President Cooper?
Yes.
11 yeas, no nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
From the docket of May 15th, 2018, the following votes pertain to Briarleaf's request for a special permit to operate a registered marijuana dispensary at 527 Pleasant Street. First motion, I move that the municipal council find that standard 1 of section 17-9.4A, standards for granting permit, is satisfied as the requested use is allowed under section 17-3.4, table of use regulations, community facilities 11C, as a special permitted use in the district for which the application is made.
Second.
Thank you. Motion's in order. Any comments?
So before we get into all of these, I'd like to make some general comments about this application. I sent out details in an email summarizing all the various communications we've received over the last, I think it's been almost 6 months now, that this application has been pending, and we've been going through this. And I also sent a link to the guidance from the city solicitor regarding how to vote on these, and this is another medical marijuana facility. It's not a recreational marijuana facility that we're discussing. And so we go through these 6 motions, and then the last one is the overall approval, and we're voting on the 6 standards for granting a special permit. The 6th one is actually not applicable, but we'll get to that one. So I think everything's in order. We've received guidance from the planning board. I sent along that communication as well. There were a couple of relatively, in my mind, minor concerns that were addressed in the 29 conditions for granting the special permit, and are required to be addressed before granting the building permit for this establishment. Little things like requiring lighting layouts and whatnot. So they're relatively minor, but the general guidance from the planning department was that everything's in order, it meets the requirements, and I'm comfortable moving forward with this, provided we have those 29 conditions set forth. So this first item here is talking about that it's within the as a special permitted use in the district for which the application is made. We meet the criteria, it's an industrial zone. I'm comfortable with it.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, do you have a comment, Council? No. This requires a 2/3 roll call vote, and the vote will begin with Council Jackson.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Mr. Cobus?
Yes.
Vice President Parika?
Yes.
Mr. Delicio?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
President Cooper?
Yes.
11 yeas, no nays.
Thank you, motion passes.
I move that the municipal council find that standard 2 of section 17-9.4A, standards for granting permit, is satisfied as the requested use will not cause undue traffic congestion or impair pedestrian traffic.
Second.
Pedestrian safety, excuse me.
Thank you, motion's in order.
Again, we've received the recommendation for the planning board. I don't see this being an issue.
Any other questions or comments? Again, 2/3 roll call vote is required, and we'll begin with Councilor Blair.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Mr. Delicio?
Yes.
Vice President Parika?
Yes.
Mr. Cobus?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
President Cooper?
Yes.
11 yeas, no nays.
Thank you, motion passes.
I move that the municipal council find that standard 3 of section 17-9.4A, standards for granting permit, is satisfied as the requested use will not overload any municipal system to such an extent that the requested use or any developed use in the immediate area or in any other area of the city will be unduly subjected to hazards affecting health, safety, or the general welfare.
Second.
Thank you, motion's in order. Any additional comments?
Again, we have the recommendation from the planning board, the 29 conditions. I'm comfortable with this.
Great. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, 2/3 roll call vote is required, and we'll begin with Council Jackson.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Mr. Cobus?
Yes.
Vice President Parika?
Yes.
Mr. Delicio?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
President Cooper?
Yes.
11 yeas, no nays.
Thank you, motion passes.
I move that the municipal council find that standard 4 of section 17-9.4A, standards for granting permit, is satisfied as the requested use will not have a severe undesirable effect on the neighborhood, public, and environment that would be lessened significantly by denying or modifying the requested permit.
Second.
Thank you, motion's in order. Any comments?
Included with the information I sent out was the memo from Attorney Feeney rescinding the complaint lodged at the public hearing about some of the surrounding businesses being concerned about this RMD being located within that industrial park. They rescinded that concern, so I don't have any concerns either.
Any additional comments? Seeing none, a 2/3 roll call vote is required, and we'll begin with Councilor Blair.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Mr. Delicio?
Yes.
Vice President Parika?
Yes.
Mr. Cobus?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
President Cooper?
Yes.
11 yeas, no nays.
Thank you, motion passes.
I move that the municipal council find that standard 5 of section 17-9.4A, standards for granting permit, is satisfied as application pursuant to the provisions of section 17-10 special regulations has been filed.
Second.
Thank you, motion's in order. Any questions or comments?
They filed their permit, it's been thoroughly reviewed by all the departments in the city, and we've received the recommendation from the planning board and the 29 conditions, so I don't have a concern.
Great. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, this requires a 2/3 roll call vote, and we'll begin with Councilor Jackson.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Mr. Cobus?
Yes.
Vice President Parika?
Yes.
Mr. Delicio?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
President Cooper?
Yes.
11 yeas, no nays.
Thank you, motion passes.
I move that the municipal council find that standard 6 of section 17-9.4A, standards for granting permit, is not applicable to this application.
Second.
The standard number 6 is regarding scientific research and whatnot.
Motion is in order. Go ahead.
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Thank you for reminding me. I don't want anybody to call us out on it.
Yes, so standard 6 is regarding scientific research or scientific development or related production. This isn't applicable to this application.
Perfect. Any other questions or comments? A 2/3 roll call vote is required, and we'll begin with Councilor Blair.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Mr. Delicio?
Yes.
Vice President Perica?
Yes.
Mr. Cobus?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
President Cooper?
Yes.
11 yeas, no nays.
Thank you, motion passes.
I move that the municipal council find that in accordance with section 17-10.15 registered marijuana dispensary uses of the zoning ordinance, that the use complies with the applicable provisions set forth herein and with the underlying district in which the land is located.
Second.
Thank you, motion is in order. Any comments?
There was some questions about this property where it's technically on Pleasant Street, but there's only a thin sliver going out to Pleasant Street from the industrial park. In the vast majority of the plot of land is in a zoning district, an industrial district, excuse me. So therefore, it's in compliance, it's acceptable. Lose my power.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, a 2/3 roll call vote is required, and we'll begin with Counselor Jackson.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Mr. Cobus?
Yes.
Vice President Perica?
Yes.
Mr. Delicio?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
President Cooper?
Yes.
11 yeas, no nays.
Thank you, motion passes.
And finally, from the docket of May 15th, 2018, I move to approve the application from Briarleaf LLC, 54 Taylor Road, Foxborough, Mass., for a special permit pursuant to Section 17-9.0 Special Permits and Section 17-10.15 Registered Marijuana Dispensary Uses to operate a registered marijuana dispensary, the subject premises being located at 527 Pleasant Street, more specifically Assessor's Plat 225, Lot Number 5, located in an industrial zoning district, subject to the following 29 conditions.
Second.
Thank you, motion's in order. Any questions or comments?
This is just wrapping it all up.
Great, thank you. Any other questions or comments from the council? This requires a roll call vote, and we'll begin with Counselor Blair.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Mr. Delicio?
Yes.
Vice President Perica?
Yes.
Mr. Cobus?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
President Cooper?
Yes.
11 yeas, no nays.
Thank you, motion passes.
That concludes my business for the Zoning and Land Use Committee. I call for committee meeting at the next appropriate time.
Thank you.
Reporting for transportation and traffic this evening. I have no business and look forward to a committee meeting at the next appropriate time.
Thank you. Counselor Delicio.
Thank you, President Cooper. Reporting for budget and appropriations from the docket of December 18th, 2018. I move to approve the request of the mayor to authorize the school department to pay previous year school bills from fiscal year 2018, totaling $8,245.84, as identified in School Department Finance Director Mark Furtado's communication.
Second.
Thank you. Motion's in order. Any questions or comments?
We discussed this last week in committee.
Thank you. A roll call. Any questions or comments from the council? This requires a roll call vote, and the vote will begin with Counselor Jackson.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Mr. Cobus?
Yes.
Vice President Perica?
Vice President Preek has been excused from the chamber.
Mr. Delicio?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
She left the chamber.
She left also. Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
President Cooper?
Yes.
9 yeas, 2 absent.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you. From the docket of December 18th, 2018, I move to approve the request of the mayor to transfer money as requested by City Treasurer Laura Gignac for additional funding for anticipated legal fees for old tax title accounts and foreclosures. Therefore, the mayor hereby requests this honorable body to transfer $40,000 from account 1144100-5783000 citywide reserve fund for transfer to account 1145100-5300101 Treasurer Professional Services.
Second.
Thank you. Motion's in order. Any questions or comments?
No, we discussed this last week in committee as well.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? This requires a roll call vote, and the vote will begin with Counselor Blair.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Mr. Delicio?
Yes.
Mr. Cobus?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
President Cooper?
Yes.
10 yeas, no nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you. That concludes the business for budget and appropriations. I'd like to wish everyone a very joyous holiday season, prosperous new year, and would like to call for a committee meeting next year at the appropriate time.
Thank you. Counselor Dolan.
Reporting for Licenses Committee, I have 12 motions this evening. From the docket of December 18, 2018, I move to approve the application for a renewal of a Class II license for Jeffrey Millette of Seekonk of 30 Man LLC to sell used vehicles at 30 Man Street, Attleboro, with 4 customer parking spaces and 23 display spaces.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order. Any questions or comments?
No comments, really. Every motion I have here, I've been down there and inspected the property.
This requires a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes 11-0. Thank you.
From the docket of December 18, 2018, I move to approve the application for a renewal of a Class II license for Raymond Klebe of 923 Washington Street for Raymond Auto Sales, Inc., with 7 customer parking spaces and 33 display spaces.
Second.
Thank you. Motion's in order. Any questions or comments?
No comments.
Great. This also requires a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Motion passes 11-0.
From the docket of November 20th, 2018, I move to approve the application for an amended Class II license from David Montenegro, DBA Old School Auto Sales at 187 Cumberland Ave, Attleboro, with 4 customer parking spaces and 29 display spaces.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order. Any questions or comments?
As it says, this is an amended license. He just amended to allow for more display spaces.
Great.
And we had the public hearing with him.
Perfect. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, this requires a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Motion passes 11-0.
From the docket of November 20th, 2018, I move to approve the application for a Class III 2019 auto renewal for Marcus J. Vitale, DBA Greco's Auto, 83 Dickens Street, Attleboro, with 10 customer parking spaces and 31 display spaces.
Second.
Thank you. Motion's in order.
No comments. We've been down there and had discussions and kind of waited on the line as far as expectations
I'm
to
sorry.
clean up the property, et cetera. I'm sorry.
No, I thought you were done. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
gonna
No,
give up
I'm
the
done
chair
now.
to-
Go ahead.
Thank you.
President Cooper.
Thank you. So I think some of you last week were surprised when I voted in opposition at committee to this license, and I want to assure you all that I did, between then and now, go down and meet with Mr. Vitale myself, and I have to tell you that there, in the city, there's probably little things that are as anxiety-provoking as in the middle of the day, someone like me shows up at your office and introduces myself as the council president, and I'm here to discuss the status of your license. I think for this young man, it was pretty anxiety-provoking, and I will say that he handled himself very well, and I will say that he was on the premises. He was up to his mid-forearms in grease working on an engine. There was a lot of action. He was getting a parts delivery. I completely interrupted what was going on, but I appreciate the time that he took to go through my concerns that I had heard from the neighborhood and from the Ward 1 councilor, that she had concerns about granting the license at that facility as well. And I want to assure you all that Mr. Vitale was very responsive to my concern. He allayed my concern. He was a gentleman throughout the whole thing, and I appreciated meeting him and getting the insight into what was going on there. And one of the things that he said to me was, I said to him, well, clean it up. And he said, tell me what you want to clean up. He said, I am a junk car dealer. And I said, you know what, Marcus? That's a good point. He has tried to allay the concerns of his neighbors. He bought the building next door, and he doesn't know what to do with that building at this time. Do I tear it down? I might not be able to rebuild it. The neighbor had some concern about the fence, about the site of the property. He put up a stockade fence within, a very reasonable turnaround time. He had that fence put up. He does admit that he has, from time to time, buys a car in New Hampshire It's not 15 minutes up the road. He comes back with the tow truck or has the car come back with the tow truck. He's paying this tow truck to come back with it, or he's got his own, and they drop the car and they drive away. So there is some intermittent disruption to the sort of day-to-day, but as in his words, he's not banging hammers and slinging wrenches till 8 or 9 or 10 o'clock at night. He's just not doing that. So I want to make sure that all of you are aware that I did go down and meet with him, that my concerns have been allayed. I will be supporting this motion, and I appreciate him meeting with me, and my comments pertain to this and the next motion. I won't give up the seat for the next one, but thank you for allowing that. Thanks. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, this, let me go back a page, also requires a voice vote. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Motion passes 11-0. Council Dolan.
Excuse me. From the docket of November 20th, 2018, I move to approve the application for a Class 2 2019 auto renewal license from Marcus J. Vitale, DBA Greco's Auto, 83 Dickens Street, Attleboro, 10 parking spaces and 31 display spaces.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order. Any other questions or comments?
No further comments.
Any from the council? Hearing none, this too requires a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Hearing none, motion passes 11-0.
From the docket of November 20th, 2018, I move to approve the following applications for a Class 2 auto renewals for 2019. Best Buy Automotive and Tires, Inc. at 725 and 731 Washington Street, Attleboro, with 4 customer spaces and 20 display spaces. Route 123 Village Auto Sales at 1076 Pleasant Street, Attleboro, with 15 customer parking spaces and 15 display spaces. County Auto Sales and Service, Inc. at 42 County Street, Attleboro, with 10 customer parking spaces and 28 display spaces. Landis Enterprises, LLC, DBA Landis Family Auto Sales, 859 Washington Street, Attleboro, with 9 customer parking spaces and 27 display spaces. Automaze, Inc., 833 Washington Street, Attleboro, with 7 customer parking spaces and 34 display spaces.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order. Any questions or comments?
Just these were lagged behind a little bit because I was giving them time to come into compliance with, everybody had a different issue. And I think they all call each other, really, is I think what they do when they tell them I'm coming. So they've been pretty cooperative. And everybody's been pretty cooperative in doing what I asked. It might have taken a little time, but everybody was pretty cooperative. So I'll support all these.
And just a comment from this seat, I appreciate all your work around the visits and the phone call and calls to me and us trying to sort this out. And I would say any of these 5 or any of the other several hundred that we have, if you have any question about how anxiety-provoking it is to have me show up, just call Mr. Vitale. He'll be happy to tell you how anxiety-provoking it is, because I think that we are in a different place in this city with regard to the way that we issue automobile dealership licenses, and we should be. We have a responsibility to protect the people that are buying cars, and being over is not where you need to be. So if you're over, get where you need to be or get your license amended. Thank you. Councilor Conti.
Mr. President and Chairperson, the element of surprise upon a visit is a very important element. In the world of assessing, I never announce my arrival, and Councilor Dolan is not threatening in any way of an appearance. Mr. President, you're a little bit bigger, so maybe it's so with you, but under no circumstances should we terminate the element of surprise upon our visits, because it's an important tool in enforcing the law, and that concludes my comments.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Councilor Conti. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, this also requires a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Motion passes 11-0.
From the docket of November 20th, 2018, I entertain a motion to approve the application for a Class 2 2019 auto renewal license for R&D Auto Sales at 116 Dickens Street with 5 customer spaces and 8 display spaces.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order.
So I left every counselor a timeline in their box, just a little history of this area. During my committee meeting before the full council, I read into the record the city solicitor's opinion. I voted it out of committee to give everybody an opportunity to speak and to have their vote known. I will not be supporting renewing this license. Again, for the reasons I spoke to in committee, the timeline of events that I've provided to everybody. I think that might be all the comments I have right now.
Did you want to ask questions first? No. Thank you.
President Cooper.
Thank you. So, unlike my previous comments, I did not visit the site. I drove by because it's 2 or 3 doors down from the previous location in terms of the appearance of the site. It looks, from what I could see, like it should. However, we have other issues at this site, and for the reasons described within the city solicitor's opinion dated December 18th, 2018, I will not support this application. I'm encouraging all of you not to support it, and I'm going to ask the chair to work on crafting the exact denial notification to the member with the city solicitor and get that out to them ASAP. So that concludes my comments. Thank you. I know. Any other questions or comments? Councilor Holmes and then Blair.
Thank you. I think listening to the committee meeting and seeing this timeline, unfortunately, they're going in the wrong direction here. And so it's sad to say that I will not be supporting this either. That concludes my comments.
Thank you, Councilor Blair.
I request a vote, roll call vote.
Yes, we will have a roll call vote on this.
Thank
It
you.
requires a voice, but we will do roll call. Thank you very much. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, a roll call vote is required, and we'll begin with Councilor Jackson.
Ms. Jackson?
No.
Mr. Waterman?
No.
Mr. Conti?
No.
Mr. Cobus?
No.
Vice President Parika?
No.
Mr. Delizio?
No.
Ms. Dolan?
No.
Ms. Reynolds?
No.
Ms. Holmes?
No.
Mr. Blair?
No.
President Cooper?
No.
11 nays, no yays.
So 0 yeas,
0
11
yays.
nays.
Yep.
Yep. Motion fails.
From the docket of September 18, 2018, I move to revoke the 2019 Class 2 auto license of Looney Tune Auto Sales, 826 Washington Street, Attleboro, Mass.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order. Any questions or comments?
We were here for the public hearing for the revocation of this license, and he will, like we read in the solicitor's opinion regarding having a place to do business, he will no longer have a place to do business. And again, we didn't know this at the time, but our intention was to move forward with the revocation of the license regarding the public hearing, et cetera. So I will be supporting this.
Any other? Vice President Parika.
I would like to make a motion to amend to
Second.
add the language effective upon passage.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions on the amendment? Hearing none, let's do a roll call vote, and the vote will begin with Councilor Jackson.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Mr. Cobus?
Yes.
Vice President Parika?
Yes.
Mr. Delizio?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
President Cooper?
Yes.
11 yeas, no nays.
Thank you. Now to the motion as amended. Any questions or comments? This also requires a roll call vote, and we'll begin with Councilor Blair.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Mr. Delizio?
Yes.
Vice President Parika?
Yes.
Mr. Cobus?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
President Cooper?
Yes.
11 yeas, no nays.
Thank you, motion passes.
That's all the business I have for Licenses Committee, and I'd like to call for a committee meeting at the next appropriate time.
Great. Council Reynolds.
Reporting to City Property and Claims Committee from the docket of December 18th, 2018. I move to approve the request of the mayor in accordance with Section 1-12 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro to accept the generous donation of 35 electronic musical keyboards with an estimated value of $1,820 from Coelho PTO.
Second.
Thank you. Motion's in order. Any questions or comments?
No, I think it's pretty self-explanatory.
Voice vote is required. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Motion passes.
From the docket of December 18, 2018, I move to approve the request of the mayor in accordance with Section 1-12 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro to accept the generous donation of Stop and Shop gift certificates from the Attleboro Elks totaling $1,700 to the Veterans Services Office.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order. Any other questions or comments?
No, as we say all the time about the Elks, that they really do a lot within the city. As you know, I appreciate all the donations that are coming before us this evening, but we do know that the Elks go way above and beyond with their donations every year.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, this requires a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
From the docket of December 18th, 2018, I move to approve the request of the mayor in accordance with Section 1-12 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro to accept the generous donation of Market Basket and Stop and Shop gift certificates from the Holiday Spirit Committee to the Veterans Services Office totaling $400.
Second.
Thank you. Motion's in order.
No comment.
Thank you. This requires, any comments? This requires a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Motion passes.
On the docket of December 18, 2018, I move to approve the request of the mayor in accordance with Section 1-12 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro to accept the generous donation to the City Health Department of $100 in Stop and Shop food gift cards and $300 in Market Basket gift cards from the Holiday Spirit Committee.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order.
No comment.
Hearing none, this requires a voice vote. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Motion passes.
From the docket of December 18, 2018, I move to approve the request of the mayor in accordance with Section 1-12 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro to accept the generous donation of $200 of Market Basket gift certificates to the Council on Aging from the Holiday Spirit Committee.
Second.
Thank you. Motion's in order. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, voice vote is required. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Motion passes.
That is all the business for Property and Claims Committee. I'd like to call a committee meeting at the next appropriate time.
Great. There is no old business. There is no new, oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Reporting for ordinance, election, legislative matters is no business this evening. I'll call for a committee meeting at the next appropriate
Ready to
time.
go. Thank you. Council Blair.
Reporting public safety emergency manager, I also have no business to see the question committee at the next appropriate time.
Great. Now, there is no old business. There is no new business. At this time, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. We are adjourned 8:58.
How great is that?